The most contemporary episode of Black Mirror presents itself as the most cautionary and terrifying of the lot. Not only is it set in the present and contains no futuristic technologies, but examines the behaviour of human beings and what that means for a technology-oriented society. Vigilante justice, surveillance, control, sexuality. This episode is chock-a-block full of topics to examine and discuss. Many were left breathless at the end of this story, so if you haven't yet watched the episode, I highly recommend you do so, because we're going to talk about nearly everything this story covers, starting with the title. Shut Up and Dance specifically refers to the controlling, mocking, and performative nature of the hacker's exercise. The phrase "shut up" is said frequently throughout the episode, but is also directly linked to Kenny's inability to express his concerns about what's happened to him. He can't talk to anybody about what he's being forced to do and must directly perform orders sent to him through his phone. He's being held hostage by the technology he has taken for granted, given that communication is now becoming so widely available to all, and he cannot even call out for help for fear of the ultimate shame being brought down upon him and his family. One word and the video gets sent out to his entire contact list. He is too scared not to shut up and dance. Dance being in reference to him being given a set of behaviours and instructions like a performer to ultimately entertain the hacker and be humiliated. There is the element of free will that has been taken away from him ultimately as well. Throughout the episode, one might assume that the hackers are playing a game to teach all these people a lesson not to do these awful things again. However, this proves ultimately pointless as the hacker relishes in the nihilistic punishment of the characters, symbolised by the troll face they all get sent via text. The power of information in this information age we seem to find ourselves immersed in appears to be the most valuable substance to human beings. One could argue in some ways that it is not the act itself that caused these characters' downfalls, but the information stored on their devices that led to their demise. We can say therefore that these characters essentially were doxed into dancing, one of the most pernicious internet-based problems with living in an information age. There are laws in place that make such things illegal, such as the Data Protection Act, but there is also the responsibility of the individual to use the internet safely. This is why you're told not to put information that is personal on your social media accounts and not actively seek software that could breach your device's security. There's no hiding on the internet, as they say. The unclear identity of the person sending the texts is ominous, as you only see words on a screen in capital letters, simply worded but devastating to anybody on the receiving end. This then elevates when the sender pluralizes their identity here. This could be a simple trick to make the dancers panic even more, but also reinforces the idea of this being a performance. He's no longer being watched by an individual, he's now acting in front of an audience. An invisible audience certainly, and one that is unremorseful and unresponsive, except for the commands that are delivered to Kenny's phone. This could also imply that he is being watched in multiple locations too, and this could certainly be plausible. Given that most people these days carry a device with a camera built into it in their pockets, what's to say those devices couldn't be hacked either? The omnipotence of this hacker makes it difficult to imagine him or her as an individual, given that they are all-seeing and all-knowing, despite all they have is personal information. This also comments on something I've discussed before regarding the lack of privacy we have in a digital age. Check out my analysis of the entire history of you for more insights on that. Given that we've established there's a large value to information, the value of screen-based entertainment and media decreases, becoming freely available on an unimaginable scale. This ranges from images, movies, porn, and even video games. What were once considered commodified luxuries are now accessible to anybody who knows how to get hold of them. This may be a result of people creating their own media now with devices of their own possession and sharing them with the world. The levels of value are somewhat blurred, however, given that full-length films can now be shot entirely on an iPhone. I think the episode slightly pokes fun of this whenever we see these GoPro shots of Kenny on his bike, giving it a much more personal feel in both emotion and style. It's interesting that when you see videos adopting these kind of techniques on YouTube, they look very visually appealing. Yet here, it's a normal-looking guy on a cloudy day in England, perhaps commenting on the mundanity of life continuing on despite the overwhelming effect of technology on our daily lives. Despite being somewhat of a taboo, the widespread availability of sexual content seems to be the main form of media the episode pays attention to. When Kenny's at work, the two guys from the kitchen are looking at something pornographic on a phone. Kenny is able to get hold of child pornography on his laptop, Hector was able to hook up with a prostitute online, even Kenny's sister's music video is overtly sexual in nature. Both Kenny and Hector's online endeavours are documented automatically. Web history and social media communication can be used as evidence against you. Perhaps here we are warned that despite how widely accessible and wonderfully free it all is, it comes at a price if you're not careful of what you're doing online. The music video segment is quite interesting to analyse also because at first it appears to us that Kenny is alone and watching something pornographic. It's edited so brilliantly that we immediately assume the worst is going to play out right here, until the hearts start popping up and it cuts straight to his sister texting away. The familiarity we as the audience experience when we see Kenny running the malware removal program reminds us of the awful experience of having to remove a virus from a computer. The unnatural sounds playing in the background when we see him through the low-quality images of his webcam enforces this idea of an all-seeing eye ready to capture the hard evidence of an unspeakable crime. Despite all of Kenny's preventative measures, installing a lock on his door, as well as ensuring the destruction of evidence, sniffing his fingers after washing them, this will not allow for complete privacy or escape from his crime. When he sees the email with the video of him masturbating, it emphasizes the power that the hacker possesses over him. This is an absolutely terrifying moment given how much of an awkward situation he's in now that he's at their mercy. He closes the laptop in horror, feeling vulnerable not only because somebody watched him perform a sexual act, but also fear of what might happen to that video. Most are aware of how information and images can spread on the internet like wildfire these days, but due to Kenny being a relatively unknown and ordinary guy, mass exposure wouldn't exactly punish him in any way. Therefore, informing everybody he knows would be the better option to truly destroy him for what he's done. Given that his contacts are going to be people he's in touch with most, removing those closest to him would truly make him the biggest social outcast in the world. A prisoner, if you like. This imagery is expressed when the camera 180 degrees from his desk to his bed, a disorienting movement of the camera to emphasize the lack of space he truly has. Is anywhere safe from being seen? Like a prisoner in a cell, the amount of space he has decreases as the frame around him gets closer and closer. No doubt his paranoia at this point must be absolutely rampant. The next day, Kenny goes to work and the camera once again perfectly demonstrates his paranoia by using handheld shots that stalk him around his area of the workplace. He then starts receiving more texts with commands, which I find interesting because he's almost being presented as though he is being turned into a robot. The phrase, "you have been activated," indicates to me that he's had his power switch flicked on and now he must obey the commands of his master. Even more interesting is that because we never see any human element to the hacker, we can draw the conclusion that this technology is controlling him, the opposite of how we think of humans controlling machines. Even the montage of his 15-mile cycle ride is intercut with footage of his GPS, implying that he has been reduced to a symbol on a screen for the amusement of these hackers. We see several other slaves, or robots if you like, with a similar terrified countenance. Due to them all being threatened with doxing simultaneously, this operation has the potential to be absolutely massive. It's even scarier when you consider the notion that most people who actively use the internet probably have information about them online that they would rather keep to themselves. Anybody could be a victim of this crime. When it is so readily available to a hacker, they can pick and choose selectively what exactly can be used to break them. This is seen when Kenny is directed to say that Mindy sent the cake to Hector. No other word would have convinced Hector to open that door to a stranger, and yet the hacker was able to put a complete stranger holding a cake into his hotel room. Inside the room, we see almost the same nightmare unfold as we saw in Kenny's bedroom. The camera on the bed acts as more evidence of sexual deviance, filling the viewer with dread as we hear Hector vomiting in the bathroom. It gives me the impression that this is not the first time Hector has engaged in this type of activity. Perhaps he stores all the films he makes onto a laptop or computer, which was hacked into by the same people that hacked into Kenny's laptop, and this information can be used to control Hector in a puppet-like manner, just as they can with Kenny. This creates a form of technological anxiety within the pair, seeking out a culprit or solution to the problem. We see a young man with a phone in the hotel that Hector examines closely, and later on he proclaims that he saw some bloke standing outside the bank freaking him out. Once again, the lack of a culprit makes the audience question whether the characters are actually being monitored throughout their activation period or if the commands are enough to control them alone. As the pair become more desperate and psychologically abused by the hacker, the quicker their responses to grab their phones become. This is evident after Hector gets activated, but is done more subtly when and after they reach the petrol station. When Karen is in the car with them, Kenny places his phone over his mouth, a reminder that he mustn't speak out about the problem out of fear that the pair's livelihood could be put in jeopardy as a result. The pair must shut up and perform their lies to her in order to get out of the situation they're in. One other thing I picked up on when Kenny goes into the station to pay for the petrol, the song Have a Nice Day by Stereophonics can be heard playing, a song that is rather ironic given that this is probably the worst day of Kenny's life. When the pair get to the bank, it's a very clever idea to have Kenny wear these yellow glasses, which are commonly used to reduce potentially damaging effects on the eye created by blue light emitted from screens. Although there's software that can do this for you, the most common use of these glasses is for individuals that use computers for extensive hours at a time. Perhaps this is another cruel joke on the part of the hackers, proclaiming that Kenny spent far too much time watching illegal pornography by getting him to wear these glasses. The people in the bank seem to be far more psychologically disturbed disturbed by his appearance than that of fear. His age, his shaky hand, his terrified voice, and the fact he wets himself are enough reason to doubt how menacing he could actually be. The banker asks him questions as if he were a small child, which is perhaps a more terrifying concept given how unstable Kenny is at this point. The sheer humiliation that takes place here on Kenny's part is incredibly damaging, and wickedly clever too. The hackers have placed him in a criminal situation outside of his bedroom, outside of the security he's built for himself, and outside of the pleasure he gets from his illicit activities. It's almost like they've said, this is how a real criminal does it, adding on to the sheer mortification that's present here. After that, Hector leaves Kenny near a woods where he meets a man like himself but armed with a box containing a drone. There's something horrifically waspish about the sound of the drone. Add to that the symbolic use of pins on the digital maps we see throughout the episode, as if Kenny is being constantly stung by the hackers. Ultimately, the bruises left on him are not a result of the malicious intent of the other individual, but as scars, or stings, from the entirety of his ordeal. It would be interesting to know if the other paedophile had to go through a similar process to end up being in the forest at the end, just to punish him in a similar fashion. It's like a sick online boxing match with genuine prize money. It makes you wonder if this was broadcasted to a large number of people, or if it was just for the hackers' entertainment. After the fight, we aren't shown any more footage of the victorious paedophile, and would have been interesting to know if he escaped with the money or if they pulled the same stunt as the others, sent him the troll face, and the police arrive at the other end of the woods. This use of the meme has been spun on its head, giving it a whole new context to the notion of trolling, and a terrifying one at that. During the last segments of the episode, the song Exit Music by Radiohead is heard. It's certainly an amazing piece that seems to sum up the feelings of the characters at the end of the story. The lyrics "Keep breathing" and "Don't lose your nerve" reflects Kenny's determination to complete his task so he can be free and won't be a naughty boy again. Of course, this turns out to all have been for nothing, and the chorus comes in just as the twist is revealed, perfectly timed to produce a feeling of never-ending descent that he will have to deal with for the rest of his life. The emphasis on breathing, an unescapable environment, and all hell breaking loose seems to resonate well with the plot. When we see what the woman in the opening scene did to spoil her career, there are a few references to other episodes hidden around the webpage. The Prime Minister in the national anthem, who raped a pig against his will, is getting a divorce. Victoria Skillane, the woman who was also revealed to be a criminal in the final of the episode White Bear, her trial is still ongoing. The One Smart Cookie advertisement is a reference to White Christmas, the computerized personality clones that are tortured and forced to do the will of human beings, and an advertisement of the 15 Million Merits talent show. Finally, there is also a Waldo sticker on Kenny's laptop. Does this mean that all the episodes are interconnected? I'm hoping not, just because I love the vast variety of stories that are produced in the show, but it could be interesting, and they could also just be Easter eggs for observant people like you and I to find. The ending of the episode puts the audience into an awkward position, given that they were more than likely rooting for a paedophile to meet his goals and come out on top at the end. It's interesting because based on his appearance, he's the last person you'd expect to be a paedophile. His weakness and his age are put into question throughout the story, particularly when re-watching the scenes from him at work that, on a second viewing, make you feel quite sick. Any insignificant suspicions are put to rest earlier on when Kenny is seen looking at a child's drawing on the table. His supervisor asks him, "Did you draw that yourself, Kenny?" directly implying that he's quite young. We are also questioned as to whether or not the hacker was ultimately the hero of the story. Is this just a more technological approach to vigilante justice, perhaps? It also brings up the question of whether the mindset of a paedophile should be treated as a mental disorder or a crime. On the one hand, the sexual assault of minors is absolutely abhorrent to anybody with moral decency. On the other, Kenny wasn't actually hurting anybody. He restricted his dark interests to the privacy of his room, and perhaps the hackers would have been better setting their sights on the individuals that make that shit on the internet publicly available. Either way, the episode's final moments allow the viewer to consider whether or not Kenny should be allowed to operate as a human being in public, knowing the dark and sinister fantasies that float around inside his mind. Thanks for watching. This video is sponsored by your generous donations over on Patreon. You can donate as little as $1 a month to support these kind of videos. There's been a load of questions thrown around in this video, so make your opinions heard in the comments below, where we will continue this discussion.